Isabel. I'm the Chief Executive of Libraries Connected, and I'm really pleased to welcome you all to today's meeting. So we've got quite a lot to fit in, but I hope you find it really interesting and inspiring as well. So the twinning scheme that we're going to talk to you about today, it was developed in response to a relationship we've been building with Library Country Ukraine, that's sort of the equivalent body to Libraries Connected. So we've done a few things together. We've had a sharing webinar where we talked about library work in the UK and in Ukraine. And at our annual seminar last summer, we heard from Lucienia Shum, who you'll hear from in a few moments. And Lucienia told us about how public libraries in Ukraine are mobilising to help their communities and also to protect Ukrainian culture in the war. And as you'll hear this morning, and as I'm sure you already know, culture is very much at the centre of the war at the moment, with deliberate attacks on Ukrainian culture, language and heritage, and also on libraries. So many libraries have been destroyed. So when we heard from Lucienia last summer, everyone in the room was really, really moved, and we're asking, how can we help? How can we help libraries in Ukraine? How can we help the library staff? So one of our plans following our seminar was to send a mobile library over to Ukraine to use in one of the areas where libraries have been destroyed. So please keep your eyes open, because soon we'll be launching a crowdfunding campaign so we can get the money together to be able to send that mobile library across. And the other thing that we wanted to do was the twinning programme. So it might seem a small thing we can do, but I do feel it could be really important. So it could help provide connection for dispersed Ukrainian communities who are now living in the UK. It will help provide moral support for library staff in the Ukraine. And there's also so much we can learn here in the UK about how resilient and innovative our Ukrainian colleagues have been in the face of, just unimaginable challenges. I think that can often be really inspiring to hear about that. But for UK libraries, twinning is also a chance for you to put your library service on the international stage. You can quite rightly then say you're not just a library service, but you're a library service with an international status. So I really hope that what you hear this morning about the twinning programme will be of interest and will inspire you to be part of it. So I'm now going to introduce our first speaker for this morning, who is Lucienia Shum, who is a director of Library Country Ukraine and a real driving force behind the relationship that we've been building with Ukrainian libraries. Lucienia.
Hello, everybody. It's really nice to see all of you today, and I would like to start my presentation with a big thanks to the support of Ukraine and Ukrainian libraries that UK is doing. We much appreciate this. And I would like to start my small presentation with some words about the situation in Ukraine. Actually, during the 2 years of war, Ukraine has lost hundreds and thousands of its best people, soldiers, children, many wounded and many unborn. So this is the war of two values, democracy versus authoritarianism, and the future of the entire world will depend on the outcome of the war in Ukraine. And now we are fighting actually for our culture, language, and traditions, for the existence of the Ukrainian people, and libraries are at the front line of this. So we see that when Russia occupies the territories, it first destroys our books and language, and then imports books in Russian. Especially we see that textbooks for children, and now for 2 years, children in the occupied territories have been forced to learn Russian and Russian history, for example, in Kherson region. Libraries in Ukraine have their own struggle. They are actively getting rid of books in Russian that are propagandistic in nature, and libraries are becoming volunteer and humanitarian hubs, and they help internally displaced Ukrainians and the army. And I will tell you some numbers that since the beginning of war, more than 600 libraries were damaged or destroyed by Russian troops, and actually already more than 100 libraries are fully destroyed. And here you can see the photos of the poets and writers that were killed by Russians. So here it is Ukrainian children's writer Volodymyr Vakulenko, who was tortured and killed by Russians in March 2022 in Kharkiv Oblast. And there are also poets and writers, Gleb Babich, Yuri Ruf, Victoria Amelina, who are also was killed. And about the school libraries, also more than 2,000 school libraries were damaged, and also university libraries were damaged or destroyed. And here you can see some photos of the cultural heritage places, also libraries, museums, after the attacks. And here the photos of Chernihiv Youth Library that were attacked in 2022, Chernihiv Library for Young People. So it was actually the architectural monument of the 19th century. Here is the small library in Borodyanka, it's Kyiv region, it is near Kyiv, and I was there and I saw this, actually these buildings that you can see through the window of this library. And as I said, that Russians destroy Ukrainian books. We have lots of facts of this. And what kind of books they are destroying? It's everything that are published after the Revolution of Dignity. It's books on the history of Ukraine, about Holodomor, it's the famine. And here you can see the books in my hands. It's Ivankiv, Kyiv region that was occupied in March 2022. And these books I presented to this library maybe in 2020 year. And after the occupation, I saw these books. As you see, they were like shot with the gun by Russian soldiers. And we saw lots of this kind of books that shot or damaged in some way. It's books about Ukrainian history and so on. And now I will turn to some positive things, that our soldiers are also saving books when they found it. And you see on these photos. And also librarians, they save books by hiding them in their homes. During the occupation, we know some facts of this. So about the libraries. So what are the new roles of the libraries during the war? They are making contribution to the victory from the first days, and they work as humanitarian and voluntary offices. They help internally displaced Ukrainians and children. They help Ukrainian army, and as you see on this photo, they are doing the camouflage nets. So every library are doing this, these camouflage nets by volunteers and also by children. And for example, my children had this experience also. So they package humanitarian, and also the very important thing is that they provide psychological support. So also the first aid courses in the libraries you see on this photo on the right, some leisure activities for children, assistance in registration for refugees. This is quite important also for elderly people, and also some specific roles as health corners in libraries. So our foundation is providing this project, Healthy Libraries, and we equipped more than 30 libraries with such kind of healthy corners, with the aim to improve public health in communities through libraries. And you can see it on the photos, how it looks like. So it's also, of course, it's books about health promotion and some medical equipment, basic. And as to the psychological support, you can see on this photo, it's the specific methodology that came from Israel. It's called Hibuki therapy. Hibuki, it's from Israel, it's hugging dog. And as you see on this photo, this is the toy of the dog, which can hug you. And this is a methodology, psychological, for children, how to overcome this trauma for children. So libraries are also doing this with the support of psychologists. Also, another type of activity is green libraries. It's educational work on environmental issues that is important also during the war, because we call it ecocide, because our environment suffered a lot from the war. It's a big, actually, catastrophe. And the libraries have its own role in this activity. Also, you can see on these photos, is the work with children. And as to the topic of our today's meeting, we really think that this cooperation with the foreign libraries will support our Ukrainian libraries. It's like a moral support and exchange of experience and exchange of books, information and cultural exchange. We think it's really important, and we thank you and thank to Liverpool Library for this, our first step of the cooperation with Odesa Library. And we made this concept of sister libraries for Ukraine, and we really hope that we will find lots of partners for our Ukrainian libraries. So thank you, and if you have questions to me, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Luciana. I think somebody's put in the chat how moved they are. Lorna said, "My heart goes out to you." Dreadful images, and I think we'd all agree with that. It's shocking to see the destruction of the libraries, and but also just extraordinary how library staff are responding to the needs of their communities, and the new services that you're delivering. I always find that really inspiring to listen to. Well, now
I saw, I'm sorry, I saw the question, can you recommend any Ukrainian book supplier, including ebooks and audiobooks? Yes, we have the supplier, so we can share the contacts.
Brilliant, that's great.
Yeah.
Please do use the chat box for messages and comments, and then when we've heard from all the speakers, we'll come on to those. So keep the questions coming in. I can see there's some good ones coming through. And now for our next speakers, we're going to hear about an existing twinning scheme between Odesa Library and Liverpool libraries that was launched last summer in an amazing event where we had the First Lady of Ukraine, the King and the Queen, and the Ukrainian ambassador. It was a really, really lovely day. So over now to Veronika Jasinska and Alison Cassidy to talk about that twinning.
Hi to everyone. Thank you so much. Just a second, I will open my presentation. Hope you can see that. If anyone can say yes, it will be really helpful, because I couldn't see anyone.
Yeah, that looks great.
Thank you so much. So if you don't mind, I will use my notes because I would like to be as quick as possible, because this story is really, really long. And I would like to share from the perspective of a person who've been displaced because of the full-scale invasion. And my journey started actually from February 2022, and I ended up in Liverpool only in April 2022. As a part of Homes for Ukraine scheme, which has been launched by the UK government for Ukrainians, we've had an opportunity to join for a Q&A session at the library when anyone could come and ask or to be advised with NHS system or with the job center how to find a job. And I came there with part of my host family. Actually, we've been kind of lost a little bit at the Liverpool Central Library, but I was so lucky enough to meet Alison there. And she was so kind that she actually made a quick tour for me and my host. And she showed us actually the library. And this actual act of Alison's attention and her knowledge about the library gave me an unforgettable experience and sense of a really big fulfillment. And especially the story of John James Audubon book, this book called Birds of America. You can see that on the photo. What is the really special about that book? So this book was and still the witness of the Second World War. And while Alison shared me about that, I was definitely shocked in a good way and a good sense that how actually the culture and such a rare books are preserved and how the culture protected and reestablished, refurbished after the Second World War. So for me, it was kind of the impulse to think about what I should do as a Ukrainian to protect my own culture and protect our Ukrainian identity. So the idea and my request to Alison was, is it possible at all to have Ukrainian books in Ukrainian language at the Liverpool Central Library? And after, I can only imagine how difficult it was probably at that time. And after the negotiations and important decision-making process between library management, the answer was yes. And I was extremely happy to share about it with the Ukrainian community in Liverpool through my social media and through our groups. So also you might have spotted a really nice girl, Olenka. Her name is Olenka. I knew her from the times that I did some charity projects in Ukraine. I found out on social media that her mom started the fundraising campaign to raise the finances for her new educational year at the art school. And by purchasing her book, it will be as the contribution for her education. So I was 100% sure that we need to have that book at the Liverpool Central Library. And the young writer, Olenka, she even didn't expect that the first international home of her first book will be the Liverpool Central Library. So it was a really special moment for Ukrainian family. It was so inspirational for them, and especially for Olenka to create and to write more interesting stories for children. So I need to say that I couldn't stop to invite my friends to the Liverpool Central Library because I found it so special. I've tried to share with them a bit that I remembered from Alison's presentation, but it wasn't enough. And I was thinking about to ask Alison, is it possible at all to have some tours for Ukrainian community around the library, or can we collaborate on that maybe? And because I felt that it is something that we need to share with the Ukrainian community, and everyone need to see the Liverpool Central Library and how actually it survived after the Second World War. And during our collaboration, and because of Alison's dedication and motivation, we've been able to host tours for more than 100 Ukrainians there. and it was a huge impact for the Ukrainian community because they felt so accepted there, and they knew that they can have a really safety place and something that and the spot, the map of the city where they can find books in Ukrainian language. So as the Ukrainian community in Liverpool developed, and after my conversation and some dialogues with parents, I realized that they faced with the problem that they can feel the lack of the Ukrainian culture around their children. As you know, the children, they are so adaptive and they can absorb everything that they could see in the seconds. And predominantly it was another culture, another language. So I found out that we need to start probably to create some events that will be dedicated to Ukrainian culture. And I've sent that idea, of course, to, at that point, I knew more persons from the Liverpool Central Library, not only Alison and Denise, actually, who agreed that project as well. So yeah, we started to make this series of the cultural events, which included edutainment components such as cartoons, screenings, workshops, dance master classes, and of course collaboration with local organizations. You might ask what the topic of it was, but probably you understand that everything was around the Ukrainian culture. But important to mention that it was absolutely available for anyone to join, and even if someone speaks only English or any other language, they could join to us freely, because we've had some captions in English for the cartoons. Our helpers can speak both Ukrainian and English as well. So it was, yes, it was around the Ukrainian culture, but it was opportunity for other people to discover it for themselves as well. So I need to say that in the time frames that we've had at that time, the decision process from the library management was enormously quick, and I was actually shocked by that, because you know how many decisions should be made before and agreed before you will start any kind of project. You might ask me, what about the twinning project? Because we've gathered here to speak about that. And finally, we came to that point. As I saw that the Liverpool Central Library is so open for the Ukrainian community and so motivated and to make something for us, I was thinking about that it should be something even bigger than the events. So this project of the twinning libraries was born from the simple question that I've asked myself. Maybe we can twin not only cities, but two cultural institutions. At that point, Liverpool was twinned with Odesa, and still it is twin cities. So I asked myself, at that time, I've already got the contacts of the Library Country Foundation. I've asked them, what do you think about it? I've asked Liverpool Central Library, and we got a call just to discuss it. Maybe we should do that. And finally, 26th of April became the really remarkable day for both countries, for Ukraine and for the UK. And it was the day when the most important persons, as the King and Queen from the UK side, and our First Lady and Ministry of Culture from the Ukrainian side, and Odesa's librarians from the library joined to actually agree that the twinning project between two cultural institutions is something that should exist and should be. And because it is something that brings, for truly, it brings light even through this so tough and so difficult times for our country. And for me, as the person who left my home with only one rucksack, to understand that I was so blessed to have such a supportive environment, actually to build ideas and to execute them, is still something that I can it contain until now. So, and yes, this is how my little dream to have books for Ukrainians at the Liverpool Central Library became something that will last 4 years between two countries. I hope so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, that's wonderful. And now we'll hear from Alison Cassidy from Liverpool Libraries.
Thanks so much, Isabel, and thanks to Veronica as well for everything that you've said. I'm hoping that everybody can see the screen.
Yes, we can see your slides.
Perfect, lovely. The road to the twinning between Liverpool Central Library and Odesa Regional Scientific Library began when, as you've heard, Veronica and I met in May 22 at the first Welcome to Liverpool event for displaced Ukrainian families. Feels like a long time ago when I first met Veronica and took her and her host family on an induction tour of Central Library. We instantly made a connection. Veronica had fallen in love with the building and was so enthusiastic about what the library service is doing, and a great working partnership formed with us. Very soon, Veronica becoming the interpreter on the guided tours, helping to answer questions and publicise the offer through her social media channels, and just ensuring that the tours were well attended by families. This collaboration then led to a book project, as you've heard, Veronica helping us to source some really high quality children's books through her contacts in Ukraine. And the expansion of our community languages collection is still ongoing. The collection continues to be well received and utilised by the Ukrainian community. And it's just one example of the legacy which has come out of this. We've also built much stronger connections with the established diaspora of Ukrainian people in Liverpool, as they become more aware of the role Central Library and library services in the city were playing in supporting Ukrainian families. And this has led to some wonderful events, such as a Holodomor commemoration event in November 22, and also a fantastic Refugee Week celebration in June last year, in which we had a fantastic demonstration of Ukrainian traditional dance. So due to all of this project work which had already been done, we were already in a great position in terms of our working relationship to move forward with the idea of twinning. And when Veronica came up with the proposal of the twinning Central Library with a library in Ukraine, the library service senior management here was enthusiastic as us to develop the idea. The Liverpool City Council also recognised, importantly, this would be of great cultural significance for both cities, and it was decided to incorporate the celebrations into the Eurovision Ukraine Community Project, as you've heard from Veronica, culminating in the royal visit in April, as you've seen on her slides. So our commitment as a library service to support our Ukrainian counterparts through a sustained long-term cultural and professional connection was established. And after consulting IFLA guidelines for good practice and taking some advice, and with the massive help of Library Country, who were already in consultation with Libraries Connected, we were able to source all the help and support we needed, and the project was really quick to progress. On our behalf, Library Country, who are a vital link in the chain, contacted the Odesa Public Libraries Network, who decided the best candidate for us to twin with would be the Odesa Regional Scientific Library, an amazing opportunity for us, even more special because, as Veronica's mentioned, the city of Liverpool was twinned with the city of Odesa since 1957. So after the Memorandum of Agreement was endorsed, joint activity commenced with an online event pretty quickly on the 21st of March with an International Poetry Day. We held an online festival of poetry readings by library staff in both Liverpool and Ukraine. And it was great fun and a really memorable event to participate in. You can actually see a recording of that online event at the YouTube link on my slide here. And I believe we've also seen some lovely photographs of the event which soon followed, a cultural event for children and families on the 25th of March, which Veronica's kindly shown to us. So there are really some important cultural partnership goals that are a really important part of this project. We're committed through the Memorandum of Agreement to several important goals, which are really summarised on the slides. Sharing of best practice, innovation across national and international library sectors, the sharing of cultural resources, books and information, and vitally decolonisation of collections too, which is something that the CCN has spoken about very eloquently today. Co-curation of cultural and activities and events, and supporting the re-establishment of Ukraine's cultural infrastructure post-war, the sharing of advice and information, including health and wellbeing initiatives, is also an important aspect of this. Shared benefits of the partnership to our residents in Liverpool are clear. Not only will the twinning foster an understanding of different cultures between British and Ukrainian people, but we will also be supporting Ukrainian families, particularly children, to maintain cultural ties with their home country and creating a sense of normalcy and community. I think it was one of the library staff at Odesa Central Library who actually said about the importance of parents being able to read bedtime stories to children in their own language, just to be able to create some sense of comfort or normalcy to them. And that seems like such a simple thing, but yeah, such an important thing. We're working really hard to remove any barriers to education for displaced Ukrainians in the UK and trying to increase resources to support English language skills and employment opportunities for Ukrainian displaced families here. And library service can only benefit professionally through sharing of best practice, training and exchange of ideas. So I'd say finally, but it's just the beginning and not the end of the story. But to conclude, Liverpool Central Library is a symbol in our city of how culture and heritage can be salvaged, rebuilt and flourished after the atrocities of war and attempts at cultural genocide. We do empathise as our Central Library was reduced to rubble in the May Blitz of 1941, and we reflect on the devastation being caused on a massive scale to Ukrainian libraries, archives, museums and art galleries. We firmly believe that our cultural heritage makes us who we are as a nation, but it's a link that we all share as residents through of the planet and through our common humanity. We want to be a part in Ukraine's efforts to restore and rebuild the national identity and cultural values, which are so precious to them and to us all through this twinning project. First Lady Zelenska spoke really movingly during the twinning ceremony about the literature of Ukraine being a symbol of its invincibility, a sentiment which is echoed by King Charles, who spoke the Ukrainian phrase, "A book saves the soul." This to me encapsulates the spirit of the twinning agreement, and I would encourage any library considering twinning to take up this amazing opportunity and stand together with us on this cultural front line. So thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Alison. And it was really lovely to be with you on the day when you launched the partnership, and to see. Yeah, I was kind of on a higher balcony looking down on the King, and I could see that he'd altered his notes. I think he was very moved by what he'd seen. So he really was, he really did speak from the heart, and it was really moving day.
Absolutely, Isabel. And we actually weren't expecting the King to talk. That wasn't part of the schedule. So we were so surprised when he pulled the speech out of his pocket and spoke so movingly about the loss of libraries in Ukraine. And it really it's fantastic to see that emotional connection, and how he felt about it. It was really inspirational.
Great, thank you. And now our next speaker, I'm going to introduce Larissa Belton. So Larissa's been working with us at Libraries Connected to help set up the twinning scheme and create the framework for it. So Larissa, over to you.
Thanks, Isabel. I'm just going to share my screen and possibly stop my video. Got an unstable connection and I wouldn't like it to. That's what I'm going to say. So, my shared screen.
We can see that, Larissa.
So thanks to Luciana and Veronica and Alison in presentations, and hopefully they've sort of piqued your interest in this scheme. What I'm going to do next is to really give you a snapshot of what the application form looks like, and who are interested in signing up to this is the form. It will be available on the Libraries Connected website, and it will also be listed on shared on Basecamp and through the newsletters too, so keep your eyes open for that coming very, very soon. And we're really grateful to Veronica and Luciana for all their suggestions for the scheme and for the application form as well, because that made a huge difference to sort of create it with people who have been through the process and who are in Ukraine and understand the situation that Ukrainian libraries are going through at the moment. So in terms, I'm just going to scroll through the intro because you can read this through at your leisure when you see the form. The expression of interest, the key thing takeaway from this is that applications need to be in by Friday the 15th of March, and there's they need to be returned to Libraries Connected. What will happen after this is that there will be a small panel who look at the applicants, from the UK, look at the applicants from Ukraine and work out where the best fits are in terms of the twinning. And what we should also say is that we want the scheme to be fairly flexible, so there isn't anything particularly prescriptive in terms of what you need to apply, how your library service needs to apply. So if you wanted to apply for your whole, say, city or borough or county service, you could do that. You could apply just individually if you maybe want to do something with your central library, or a library in a rural area where there are a lot of Ukrainians who live. So it's entirely up to you. The scheme is about being flexible and creating something that will work for libraries in the UK and libraries in Ukraine and be long lasting. So we're asking you things like the kinds of areas that you're interested in collaborating on, if there's specific areas, if there are any cities or regions you're interested in. And a lot of the questions here map really, really closely with the application process that Library Country Ukraine have developed with their libraries. So we're asking you similar questions to those that have been asked of the Ukrainian libraries in order to map you as effectively as possible, really. And just to sort of underline, there's definitely some themes that are coming out from the Ukrainian libraries around areas that they'd like to collaborate on. And those include challenging disinformation. Obviously, this is a challenge in the UK as well, but there's something international to be gained there with sort of sharing experiences, continuing professional development for staff, online events and cultural exchanges in person, and if that ends up being possible. And also there is a question around if there are any Ukrainian language skills in the libraries. The form also includes various different resources around existing Ukrainian and UK links, so that's Ukrainian and UK twin towns already. Some of the libraries which have expressed an interest, and you can see the range of different libraries and different areas where people want to reach out to the UK and share knowledge and learning. And there's also a little bit of a list here of UK towns which have established Ukrainian communities. Now, some of those communities are maybe 100 or 75 years old, but some of them are very new. So like Hastings and Rother, for example, and Eastbourne, Hemel Hempstead, these are all communities that have started to organise themselves since 2022. And it's not exhaustive, because actually there are lots of communities, like Bristol's a good example, where there are a large number of Ukrainians living and doing things together, but not in a formal setting. So you will know your areas best. You'll know if you've got an audience there to engage with. And there's a lot of information. We've also summarised the Liverpool Odesa case study as well, just for reference when you're filling out the form, and just to get your ideas going around what you may wish to do. I'm I'll just scroll through the rest of this. So you, as I say, you'll be able to read this in more detail, but it's always nice to see what you might want to what to expect. And this is a really helpful section here by Veronica, which gives ideas of the kinds of things that they did in Liverpool that can start your ideas and your planning. There we go. I shall stop sharing now. I think the only other things to mention is that once the matching is done, they will be able to share with you a template memorandum of understanding. Now, this isn't a legal document. You may need to, depending on your own sort of situation locally, you may wish to talk to your legal team about this. It's not a legal document, but it is a template that you can use to create an agreement between yourself and the Ukrainian library that you're twinned with. And there will also be a simple sort of beginner's guide to Ukrainian culture that will be sent out to twinned partners as well, with lots of great links of places, videos online, and all sorts of different bits and pieces where you can start to get your head around what Ukrainian culture is and work around that decolonization of what Ukrainian culture means. And once we've looked at all the applicants, sent out all these bits and pieces, there will be a launch event in spring. The date's to be confirmed yet, but watch out for that too. That will happen in the spring, hopefully around the time that Liverpool will be celebrating their first anniversary of twinning. Okay, that's everything from me. Thank you.
Wow, excellent. Thank you, Larissa. So someone's asked when will the form be available on the website. So it will be really soon. It's not up there yet, but as soon as it's up there, we'll send the link round to everybody who registered for this and out through our usual channels. So everyone should be able to get that. So we've now got a bit of time for questions and to the speakers and any comments. So I think we've answered the ones that we've had so far, apart from one from someone called Irina, who asks, how can we reach out? Oh, sorry, Luciana has answered that, but we'll talk about it anyway. How can we reach out to colleagues in Ukraine? So Luciana, would you be able to talk about that question?
So on our side, we are collecting the libraries who are willing to do this partnership. So we have this list. We will provide them with all information and with some trainings on communication with the international partners. And so we will be the moderator of this process of negotiation with the Ukrainian libraries.
Great, thank you. That's brilliant. So have we got any more questions in the chat? I think we've answered all the ones in the chat. Or any comments from anybody? Is anyone now keen to apply to be part of the twinning scheme? Brilliant, I can see some nods and hands up. Actually, Kevin, you put your hand up. Could I invite you to say a few words about why it's appealing to you?
Yeah, it's fantastic being here today. It's really great. I'd like to thank everybody for their organisation of this seminar, and it is really moving. It's really moving hearing stories about what's happening in Ukraine, and it's really impressive. I know the work of Alison in Liverpool. It's really impressive the work done on this project so far. Here in St Helens, we're a very new Arts in Libraries team, but you know, I will take it back to the rest of the team. To be honest, I know nothing about our Ukrainian society in St Helens, but today has made me determined to find out more and try and be more warm and encouraging to those people who live with us and connect them with arts and libraries. It's something personally I'd love to do. If I can make a whole council move in the right direction, I will do so.
Great.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear that. We've also got Laura from Thameside. Would you like to say a few words? Laura?
Just hello there. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I found it very moving and very inspiring. Interestingly, my grandfather was a Ukrainian who moved to Ashton-under-Lyne, so I know that was on your list there. So that's why I've got a particular interest in this personally. And yes, and just hearing about how in the Ukraine, it's actually the decimation of that cultural heritage is taking place. And I find that incredibly frightening. And I'd love to do what I can to assist in preserving that. So I'm very interested. Yes.
So when did your grandfather move to this country?
Oh, it was during the Second World War. He was actually a deserter from the German armed forces. So yeah, so it was quite hectic. He didn't like to talk about it very much, though, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So yes, so he came over, and I know that there is a strong Ukrainian community in this area, and he was involved in that.
Gosh, that's so interesting, isn't it? And yeah, and also so interesting about the real complexities of Ukrainian history and the waves of people who've had to leave, and yeah, really interesting. Ben from Greenwich, you say you'd like to take part too. Ben, do you want to say a few words? I'm not sure if we're going to hear from Ben there. And Joe.
Does Ben know
Hi, Ben.
Does Ben know he's on mute?
Does what, sorry?
Does Ben know he's on mute?
Oh, right, maybe not. Ben, would you like to unmute yourself? Is he still with us?
But Ben's still with us, but he's obviously having.
Oh, is he? Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ben, I don't think your sound's working. I can see you're not muted, but we can't hear you, unfortunately. Oh dear. No, still can't hear you. Oh. Well, we'll just take it that you were going to say something very insightful and interesting, and thank you for sharing that with us. Could I go to Joe Hoyer now? Because Joe's also looking at how they link it to their work as a Library of Sanctuary, which is really interesting.
Yeah, we're trying to apply for all our libraries in our county to be Libraries of Sanctuary and receive the award. Developing really on all the work we've done since the beginning of the war in Ukraine with helping sanctuary seekers, doing welcome events like earlier and regular coffee mornings. And my friend's daughter-in-law is Ukrainian, and her parents and brother in Kyiv. So they've helped us translate an information leaflet that we could hand out to sanctuary seekers as well to explain about the library service and the Ukrainian books we have stocked, and an app that we've registered for Ukrainians. So yeah, we're trying to do a lot specifically for Ukraine, but also other sanctuary seekers as well.
Great, thank you. And I think Libraries of Sanctuary is a fantastic sort of movement, and we're really pleased to work with Cities of Sanctuary a while ago to produce a toolkit around that. So we'll circulate that as well, but I'm sure most of you already know that, and I know a lot of libraries are involved as Libraries of Sanctuary. Anna from Cambridgeshire Libraries, do you like to talk about, you've got something to say on Libraries of Sanctuary as well. Anna.
It was just a quick invitation to Joe, because in Cambridgeshire we regularly get together with our colleagues in Norfolk and Essex to talk about Libraries of Sanctuary in the east of England. So we have kind of like a little informal network, and it would be really lovely for Northampton to join us if you wish to. So I just put my email address in the chat.
That's great.
Thank you, that would be brilliant. Thank you. I'll take your email. Thank you.
And we've also got Carolyn Kimmins, who'd like to say a few words about Libraries of Sanctuary. Carolyn.
Yeah, it was just to say, we applied a few years ago for Lancashire, all our libraries to be Libraries of Sanctuary. So we've, a bit like Joe was saying, I know you're in that process. We're sort of think a year and a half in now, because you have to do a 3-year plan. So for us, we've worked quite heavily with Ukraine, sort of refugees, asylum seekers, rehome, resettlement, but also all the other countries as well. And I think it's a fantastic idea. But for me, I think as well, it's also linking it with, you know, rather than just singling out one. So it's whether it can fit in with what we're doing. So we already do tours of the library, but we do them for, you know, resettlement, refugees, asylum seeker, rehome, you know, all of the schemes, rather than, like you say, one particular. So we would do like a Ukrainian culture. We used to have a Ukrainian shop, and people come in and get vouchers in some areas. So we do pockets for individual countries, I suppose, depending on which libraries locally have. So it was just, do you sort of see how it would fit in? For example, with the twinning, is it better for, like, as Lancashire libraries, is it better to pick an individual area where, you know, sort of we've got 64 libraries, so is it better to pick an individual library to apply for with, you know, Clitheroe, Barnolds, maybe 4 or 5 areas have Ukraine, you know, resettlement round them, if that's the right terminology. But yeah, other areas in Lancashire may not, you know, they might have Afghanistan refugees and resettlement. So for me, it's very localized. So we do the guided tours, but it wouldn't necessarily be a Ukrainian guided tour. It would be, you know, people seeking sanctuary, like library tour. It would be a cultural event, of a dance event, and it could have different cultures at different times. So it's whether you see that just has to be, you know, I suppose, a path of just Ukrainian sort of activities and culture, or is it can be incorporated with others. And I don't mean that to sound horrible at all, because, you know, war in all countries is horrendous, and I think, you know, there's a lot of countries at the moment going through an awful time. The stories are just horrendous, but for me, I just want to know how that fits in really with what we're already doing and with our already plans, because I don't want to say we don't want to be involved, but I would hate to say, well, actually we're going to single out one particular country, because I don't think, you know, war in every country is horrendous, you know, and the stories are harrowing all over. We've done Ukrainian photograph exhibitions that we've toured around. So again, it's just how you see that fitting in. Sorry, that was very long-winded.
No, that's fine. Could I, Larissa, would you like to answer this? I know you've been doing some thinking about this.
Yeah, I think we're thinking about, I mean, part of the idea of this scheme is as a pilot to see how it would work twinning with Ukraine, and then something that could be rolled out to other countries. So there's certainly that, and I absolutely get where you're coming from, that it's really, really hard when there is so much going on in the world to feel like you are prioritizing one place over another. What I suppose I would say is that if it's something that you think is interesting, absolutely keep it scalable. If you've got, especially, like, you know, Lancashire's massive, you've got 64 libraries, and you can't do something everywhere. But actually, if, I don't know, if it's Barnoldswick or somewhere that is doing something really active, has got a very active community who are coming in and using the building, because this is part of the issue. A lot of the communities are using who are arriving in the UK are using libraries as a space, because there isn't another kind of community centre, or it's you know, this is what we do, libraries do this, we make it ourselves welcoming and accessible. So actually, if you wanted to maybe just focus on that one library where there's something active and do that, and then you can be looking at, say, a smaller village in Ukraine, because this is the thing, a lot of the Ukrainian libraries who are coming forward, some of them are national institutions, some of them are universities, some of them are central libraries, and the way that the library structure works in Ukraine is slightly different to the UK, the way the branch networks really seem to work. So it could work quite well then that you've got 2 small places joined together. And there might even be something where, you know, if there are people in Barnoldswick, for example, who are from Kharkiv or from a particular area in Ukraine, that might help to inform where you'd like to twin with. So it's thinking about all that. So it's about the flexibility of the scheme, really. We want it to be open, we want it to work, and we want it to fit where library services in the UK feel that it would work for them, rather than being something that's not, it's just messy. Does that help, Caroline?
No, definitely. And like I say, it was just with Libraries of Sanctuary, a bit like a few people have said, that we did it for the whole county, we did it for all libraries, whereas I just feel this is more individual libraries rather than, but I wasn't sure if that's how the application form worked.
Yeah, it does, and it's been kept fairly open. So, you know, if there is anything on that application form where you actually have got a bit of an idea, please do share it with us, because when we come to do the matching, that would be hugely helpful.
Okay, and the one thing I probably would add to that, where the lady, sorry, is it Lorenza?
Oh, Luciana.
Luciana, sorry, Luciana. When you were saying about the culture, the way we did that to include everybody and be inclusive of all cultures, we actually had a lady from Ukraine who had come over and she played the bandaroo, but then we had an Arabic poem speaker there, and so it was a Libraries of Sanctuary celebration, but we had all different cultures there, and I suppose that's what I was trying to sort of work out before, if that would be acceptable if there was all cultures there rather than just one culture. But it was really inclusive and everybody really enjoyed it, so it was that sort of thing I was thinking of, really. Yeah. But no, thank you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what's coming out of Ukraine, Veronica and Luciana will sort of correct me if this isn't quite right, but actually a lot of the work around Ukrainian culture is actually talking about how diverse Ukrainian culture is. So there is a really big issue in terms of Crimea and the Crimean Tatars and their Muslim faith, and the difficulties that they've had over since, you know, from the 1940s onwards and previously, the annexation of Crimea. It is a lot of what we're talking about when we talk about Ukrainian culture, is talking about how diverse it is. There are people of Jewish faith in Ukraine who've endured all sorts of things. It's about that. So actually, I think if a fit to talk about inclusivity, it's almost like the perfect fit to talk about inclusivity in a way, I think.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. I think we've got time for two quick more comments. So firstly, Jordan Mead from Kent.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'm a county councillor in Kent, and it's been really touching to hear the stories today, particularly as I've been out to Ukraine now twice, and actually doing some work with libraries in Chernihiv, be it informally at this stage. And one of the things that they've been asking for is actually the donation of English books to promote the English language in Ukraine. So I've taken out over 200 English children's books, and I'm due to be visiting again at the end of this month. And it's really just an offer if it could be helpful to anyone that does get Twinning off the ground. I'm an advisor to a project called the UK Friends of Ukraine. We do monthly aid trips out to Ukraine, and it might be possible that once you get your Twinning off the ground, that we could possibly help with logistical support to take any donated books out to Ukraine. And just on the back of that, as I mentioned, we're mainly focusing our work at the moment around informal partnerships with libraries in Chernihiv. Is it possible to still work within the framework of the formal twinning that you have, if we have existing projects on the go, and to perhaps use what you're doing here as a formal platform to cement those relationships in?
Larissa, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Isabel. I think I wouldn't see that was a problem. And actually, I think that using the twinning to sort of solidify that and celebrate it, I think that's the perfect fit, really. I think if you've already started to work on something, I don't see that you should start to do something new. I think if you've got something that works, absolutely celebrate it and use the twinning process as a celebration of that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
And thanks, Jordan, for your. I'll pick up your email and email you afterwards, because that's wonderful that you also want to see what support you can offer through the UK Friends of Ukraine, and yeah, that's brilliant. And also to say you've got fantastic head of library service there, James Pearson in Kent. So he's someone who's
very lucky.
Really active part of our Libraries Connected network. So yeah, you are very, very lucky. But so are we to have James as a member and colleague. I think we've got time for one more. I know we're slightly overrunning, but I just wanted to pick up on this. That somebody asked about recording. So firstly, two questions. Jill Fewings asked, can archives join? So as someone like myself, I'm an archivist from an archive background, so I'd always say yes. And indeed, Larissa, another archivists. So yeah, archives could certainly join. And as Larissa's explained, we've tried to make the framework really flexible. So if archives want to join in, that will be brilliant. Because of course, archives, especially in Central and East Europe, have got a really, really long history of preserving culture and preserving that record, again, often very bravely. So I think archives would be a great part of this. And then linked to that, somebody asked about recording the oral histories of the Ukrainian diaspora and people who've come over here. And again, just I think hearing earlier from one of the speakers about the experience of a grandfather and how he didn't necessarily want to talk about it then, but obviously then later generations do want to hear about that. So I think there's Esther, would you like to say a word, because you're already working on an oral history project, so it'd be interesting to hear from you on that line.
Hi, yeah. My name's Esther Simpson and I'm from Whispered Tales. We do a lot of oral archiving projects. We're at the really early stages of developing a project called Ukrainian Stories and the Merseyside Connection. I'm working with Jan at Liverpool Archive, and she suggested I joined this group. So I'm kind of a bit of an outsider, but it's been absolutely fascinating. Basically, very early stages of the project, but we are really looking to record stories of people who have come over, to record them whilst they are fresh in the mind. As I just think it's so important that we document these stories now, as it's such a crucial point in our heritage. And also, I'm really fascinated with the connection between Merseyside and Ukraine. I was actually one of the artists who worked on the Eurovision projects that happened. So I did quite a big installation where I worked with Ukrainian filmmaker, still based in Kyiv, and a Ukrainian musician as well. So it's kind of been a long and oddly as well, I went to Odesa in 2008. So I've got a kind of connection with Ukraine, and I've just been looking to try to do something else with it. So yeah, that's the project at the moment. Like I say, at the moment we're looking at Merseyside, but I'm really keen to know if anyone else is interested in recording stories. I've made some contacts as well with the archive, the Ukrainian library in London, the AUGB one. So they're really interested. So they've got obviously oral history from post Second World War. So it may be that we look at both, all very early, but that's what we're doing.
Great, Esther. That sounds fantastic. So again, I'll pick up your email and make contact with you afterwards, because it's maybe something that, as your project gets underway, we can look at that as a model for other twinnings, or see if we could expand that. I think there's a lot of interest in that area. I think unfortunately we've come to the end of this morning, but thank you. Firstly, thank you to all the speakers, and and especially to our speakers in Ukraine or Ukrainian. I think, as to quote somebody else from today, our heart goes out to you. We know that you're working in really difficult circumstances. But I think this morning's shown how important the twinning scheme can be, and some of the ideas that have come off from it. So we will send some notes out to everyone who signed up for this event, and a link to the form. And that's really wonderful that the